Hi, welcome to Mountain Jim Card Collectibles. So, managed to find something to talk about that people are weighing in on social media. If anything, I deserve to be monetized because it's been such a nightmare to find any good material lately. So maybe you could subscribe. But then again, I won't cross my fingers. Anyway, what people are talking about are what are your pet peeves for the sports card hobby or just collecting in general, or investing cards or, just cards in general for 2026. And I know that, my biggest issues with the hobby is how it really caters to breakers over collectors. It really hypes up the gambling aspect over the true value aspect. And to me, it's kind of a fallacy of capitalism to an extent that, they have to hype up gambling over honesty. So when we get into these pet peeves, some of them are pretty good. I haven't gone over the whole thing, but I have to agree with a lot of it. So this just recently came from Card Purchaser on X. Let's see what they're saying. What is your hobby pet peeve in 2026? And I have a lot of them. This first one. Collectors, the infrastructure that powers fraud, mistrust, and opportunity in defrauding collectors. I'd have to agree. The price keeps increasing on every product. Prism NFL 2025 have no case hits. Other than that, the hobby is great. Well, the hobby has been better. I know that the endless amount of gaslighting that comes from, the influencers for the most part, that trickles down to the poor collectors, it gets exhausting. The SP in listings when it's just a damn base card. Yeah, I've seen that. You have to be careful if you're buying singles on eBay. If it says SP, you really have to do your homework. Get on Google, type in the information on the card. A lot of times that information will pull up. So if you have any questions, Google it. I'm putting that out there because I've ran into that a lot. I wish they'd stop doing that. I wish eBay would crack down on that a little bit. I think it's at Topps buying up all its competitors and attempting to have a monopoly in the business. At Topps doesn't even come close to Panini America in terms of card design and inserts. Well, as far as card design, I have to give Topps some credit. And if anyone knows my channel, I really don't like a lot of Topps designs, but I don't know what it is about that Prism base. I just am so exhausted when I see a Prism base card because it's like year in and year out, they all look the same. Those silver prisms. I don't know. I just believe there's a lot better companies out there. I mean, I look at Upper Deck. I look at Leaf. I look at Wildcard. There's just so many, companies out there that are really making some awesome products. And I do like Panini inserts, Downtowns, Kabooms, a lot of their other inserts as well. They are awesome at inserts. So I'll give credit where credit's due. Exclusive licenses per sport. Yeah, we need to get rid of the monopoly. The sports leagues are as guilty as sin, for what's going on in sports cards. They really are. I mean, if you want to blame anyone, you can blame Topps Fanatics and Michael Rubin. I always do. But then you really have to look at, but who really created this mess? It's the sports leagues. The sports leagues don't really care about collectors now, do they? I guess the sports leagues only care about gamblers and breakers. Don't pretend they don't. Regular people, especially new collectors, being priced out of the hobby. A parent shouldn't have to worry about not being able to pay the bills just because their child asked for a basic box of Topps for their birthday. No one should be asked to pay these ridiculously inflated prices. It's going to come back and bite the card companies in the ass when all of those possible future customers and collectors that didn't get that box of cards because it was too expensive for an average person to afford decide to take up a different hobby than card collecting. A hanger box, 15 cards of 25-26 Topps Chrome Flagship NBA is $50. Come on, man. It's such an absolute sadness. Yeah, it really is. I mean, greed in the USA has really just ruined this country to an extent. I guess that my window for affordability crashed out, basically after 9/11. I just feel like 9/11 has really made everything super, super expensive. And really what gets me is how the U.S. government and a lot of corporations have really used 9/11 to box in Americans from affordability. Hey, we have a monopoly. Oh, you can't afford it? Too bad. And it's just like, it's just getting to be so difficult, eBay not having everyone auto pay. It's always the one you had two bids on. They don't pay. They don't respond to messages. Yeah, I don't know what it is about bad buyers on eBay, but the news is getting out there. eBay is really not about buying and selling products. It's more about the shareholders. It's all about, the stock price, The very bottom of the totem pole will always be the seller. The next up will be the buyer, and above them will be the stockholder, the shareholder, And that's another reason. I know I sound like a villain for saying it, but I would get rid of the stock market because of it. Because then we could end all the gaming on the stock market, and then you can start to see businesses actually start to act like legitimate businesses again. To me, so many businesses that are on the stock market are just bad actors, I mean, to me, eBay is one of those bad actors. Do they really care about, what they're doing? Or is it just all about, painting a pretty picture so more and more people invest in their stock? But eventually, it just becomes a total shit show, and your investors are going to walk away too if they don't start, seeing the company bringing in enough money, And so I wish the stock markets would go away because I really see how destructive the stock markets are, whether it's private equity companies rolling on into communities and pricing people out of their trailer homes, when they buy, the mobile home park or apartment buildings. To me, private equity firms and the stock market are the biggest drivers of homelessness in the USA. The scalpers, I guess, so tired of seeing the posts of my local Walmart, Target, whatever, had 15 booster bundles, so I got all 15. Like, damn, save some for the rest of us. Yeah, I wish that stuff, with the scalping would end, They need to start doing like what my Walmart does, where it says you can only take max like 2 or 3 boxes, but these people know how to game that system as well. To me, that's another downfall of capitalism is it's really not fair. It just seems to be so based on greed and selfishness over being fair to everybody. So, I mean, this just goes on and on. There's no shortage of pet peeves in the sports card hobby. I mean, I recommend coming here and reading this for yourself because it's just like the never-ending book. But overall, I just sense that there's a lot of negativity and unhappiness in the sports card hobby and card hobby in general. I wish it wasn't that way. I wish it felt more like it did in the 80s and 90s. I never had to deal with this type of stuff. Never had to deal with breaking companies. Never had to deal with corporations like Topps Fanatics and Michael Rubin, who would just basically hold hostage on the products, Never had to deal with greedy sports leagues that don't care about collectors and, their fan base in general. Because I'm just going to say it. I mean, I don't know what it is about the MLB, the NBA, the NFL. They have just really turned their backs on collectors. I mean, you can't say they haven't, And I know there's a lot of channels that'll hype up the singles. I sell singles. Go out and buy singles. But that gets kind of exhausting too, I mean, I grew up ripping boxes for my cards, and they were always affordable. So hopefully something changes. I'm getting old, I've never hit, a lottery or anything. It seems like the U.S. is making it more difficult and difficult for people like me, to live here, unfortunately. I wish I had more money, but it is what it is. So anyway, how do you feel about this? Do you think that some of these people in the comments got their pet peeves right, with what's going on in the hobby, with all the negative issues that we're always battling day in and day out? Or do you think a lot of those comments were just out of the league, I mean, no reason to say that type of stuff. But either way, the hobby is what it is, and hopefully it changes back to where it favors the consumer more than the breaker. Anyway, I hope you have a great day. I'd like to thank my subscriber base. You're the only reasons I do this because I'm not monetized. And I'd like to thank my viewers. If you're a viewer and you haven't subscribed, it's 100% free. Anyway, I hope you have a nice day. I'm out of here. Bye.